Okay, let's take a look at how to do a lab, what you're going to be doing there. So sharing screen again, minimizing things again. So what'll happen is when you click on a lab, you will have a link to a lab or labs that are part of that. Usually it's just one link, one lab, but sometimes you have lab 1 and lab 2. This one's got 3 and 4 and 5 and so on. But in any case, this information is actually in the lab. So I've put it here so that you can see it before you go into the lab, but you may never do that, right? You may just come in and say, I'm going to go to the lab. So let's click on the lab. That will send you over to where you have got to either sign in or it'll pass along your password and user ID. And mine's incorrect. So must have the incorrect one there. And I can't remember if that is that one or that one. And it's the second, of course. And here we are. This one, for instance, is Linux and Mac Forensics. It tells you how long you have. This is something that I'm hoping they're changing. So I hope we see a change in this, that there isn't actually a cap on how long it is. I've had a lot of students complain about that. I've sent that on to EC Council saying, hey, this lab is for training purposes. Why cap it with an hour or 45 minutes when they may need 2 because they've never seen these screens before in their life, right? So hopefully we're getting that changed and we won't have a duration here, or at least give me the opportunity to change the duration. But once you launch this, then it's going to go ahead and spin up a virtual machine within their cyber range. So not joking, it's basically taking a snapshot of a VM, a virtual machine, and then it's spinning that up and getting that going, and it's doing that for a whole environment. So you'll have normally 3 machines that you can get to, usually a Linux computer, and then a Windows 10 computer, and then a Windows server. Usually it's those 3, but it depends on the lab. So you might end up with a Linux server and a Linux client with both Windows as well. And so, you know, it takes a little while to set this up. Now, one of the things I tell students is if you've got a very poor internet connection, it's going to cause problems. This is kind of a heavy duty thing that it's trying to do here. So please, you start running into trouble, realize I'm probably going to respond and say, can you get access to a better network? And of course, we always have EAC's computers in this building right back here. Actually, right behind those windows right here is a lab. And you can go in and do it there. You don't have to be in one of the other rooms. You can just use that lab to get it done. And so over here, they're actually going to give you the scenario, just like we saw before. And then you'll be able to go on to the next thing. Right, here's lab scenario, lab objectives, right? So that changed, right? Next, lab 1, acquiring volatile memory here. So it tells you by default, this is where you're at. This is what you need to log in on. And these little check boxes are to help you. This is not for them grading. This is to help you go, oh, I did that, and be able to move on to the next step. Now, I'm not going to go through all these steps. What I'm going to show you is this is how it's laid out to save you time with having to figure that out. And of course, if I fail this lab or I don't get it done in the appropriate time, I can just go back in and do it again, which is not a bad thing. Having, again, worked in the industry, I would set up a server or any OS I didn't understand 4 or 5 times before I did it the last time, because I knew I needed to understand the process. I needed to understand what it was asking me. I need to get rid of all the problems that could happen before it goes into production. And it's an awesome way to learn, especially if you're hands-on. All right, so up here you have this little lightning bolt, and you can send a Control-Alt-Delete. And yeah, my screen is a little small, so it does help if you have 2 monitors. That way you can have this information over on one monitor and then the other over someplace else, right? You can do that. And so, yeah, it's awesome. We actually switched over to Linux there. Let's look at resources. I can show you. Right, here's the Windows server, and you can send a Control-Alt-Delete from there. Here's the Windows 10. that when you click on it, it took me to Windows 10, and it's always got the admin information there. I don't know why they made it kind of complicated when, you know, you're in an environment. They could have just made this really easy to, but anyway. And so there's Ubuntu Forensics. It's got some stuff installed, so you Control delete that, and it's JSON is already pulled up, as you can see. And Tor, which is root backwards, right? That's they do that a lot. And this is the Unix Ubuntu suspect, and it's James. Oh no, I'm the suspect. Anyway, you would log in, right? And I'm not following the instructions, right? These are machines running, and they'll let you just do whatever you want to. You'll roam around on these computers. Please don't do anything dangerous or terrible that they would actually call me and say, who is this person? But yeah, you can get into anything you need to get into from resources. So in the instructions, usually they're going to help you just move from one computer to the next. You also have full screen, fixed window, open in a new window, reconnect. So if you had two monitors, you'd open this in a new window. If you were having trouble with the internet, you would reconnect, that kind of thing. And then this is all the stuff you can do. Revert machine, it means go back to the beginning. So maybe I went down the wrong path and screwed some stuff up and I don't even know how I did it. Revert it back, that kind of thing. And this is really how that's organized. Yeah, it's not quite as big as it ought to be, but you can shrink things down and so on. And then you follow down through each of these commands. Now, I'm going to tell you honestly, over in the textbook, they're covering that information. But a lot of people, including myself, would probably peruse that information and then come straight over and start typing these commands, because I learn much quicker if I start typing the command and looking at what it did, right? What is this doing? Oh, that's what it's doing. I just learn quicker that way. So that's not a bad thing. And then there's some help. Now, if you have problems in this lab, there's only certain things I can do. So if you run into an issue with a lab, I can go in and check and see if it's working for me, meaning something glitched, right? Something in the process of what you were doing just glitched, usually internet speed related, and it just wasn't working right. And it works for me, and I go, yes, it worked, and these are the steps I had to do to get it to work. But beyond that, then you're talking directly to their customer support. Right? So you're talking directly to them. So you can submit a support request right there. So there's only so much I can do. I didn't make the stuff. We just use it, right? So that's getting around in a lab.